Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Amy Royer and I am the project coordinator of the Rural Health Initiative. The mission of RHI is to engage partners to share ideas and expertise and to support communities in improving health while stimulating a higher level of wellness across the state. Thank you all for joining us for our webinar today, SNAP, Strengthening Schools and Communities, presented by Elizabeth Weaver and Allie Wolf. I'll go over a few technical details before we get started. Everyone's line has been set to mute. At the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session, and at that time, I will unmute all lines. But if you wish to remain muted, you will need to do so by selecting the microphone icon on the WebEx control panel, or you can do it by just selecting mute on your phone. You can also submit questions in the chat box on the right side of your screen during the presentation, and they will be addressed during the question and answer session or during the presentation if there is time. If you type into the chat box, please make sure that you're sending your comments to all participants. Otherwise, the comments will only be sent to me. So once the webinar is over, you will have an opportunity to provide valuable feedback for RHI through a brief survey. The survey will automatically pop up on the screen and will take just a few minutes to complete. So thank you all for joining us. I will now roll the ball over to Elizabeth and we can get started.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you all for joining us today for the webinar, and I think that my screen is now being shared. As Amy mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Weaver. I'm the SNAP Outreach Coordinator at the Montana Food Bank Network, and I'll be co-presenting today with Alison Wolf, who's the Data Analyst for the School Nutrition Programs at the Office of Public Instruction. Here's just a brief agenda of kind of some of the things that we're going to be covering today, but I won't really spend a lot of time on that. For those of you that might be new to this or just kind of wondering a little bit more about who the Montana Food Bank Network is or what the Office of Public Instruction does. We at the Montana Food Bank Network, we work to end hunger in Montana through food acquisition and distribution, education, and advocacy. We are the only statewide food bank in Montana, and we distribute food through a network of about 150 partner agencies across the state. We work with food pantries, soup kitchens, senior centers, boys and girls clubs, shelters, the YWCA, the list goes on and on. We also do advocacy, education, and outreach, and work with a lot of public nutrition and assistance programs that work to fight hunger. And so we work at both the local, state, and federal levels. So some of the programs that we kind of help facilitate at MFBN are the backpack program and school pantry program, as well as some summer food sites. And then we also work with our public policy coordinator works with OPI in addressing a lot of other programs such as school meals. And then I work on the SNAP program, and then we also do a lot of proponents for TANF and WIC. And so, Allie, I will, if you want to take the ball for right now and just kind of talk a little bit about OPI and your role there and what all you do, that would be great.
I am Allie from OPI, School Nutrition Program, and at the Office of Public Instruction, if some of you are unfamiliar, that is Montana's Department of Agency that administers and coordinates the educational support to schools. And our unit within OPI is the School Nutrition Programs, and we administer the meal programs under that program. That includes the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, Special Milk, USDA Foods, Summer Food Service Program, and the Team Nutrition Program.
Great. Well, for the purpose of this webinar today, I'm going to chat just a little bit briefly about hunger in Montana, particularly child hunger, because that's the realm that most of us are dealing with or are in. So 1 in 7 Montanans live in households that experience food insecurity, and 1 in 5 of children live in food insecure households. So in 2015, we collect data from our partner agencies, and then we do a biennial survey. And in 2015, there was over 110,000 different Montanans that needed emergency food, such as whether that's food boxes or making trips to a food pantry. And they made over 1 million visits to those said food pantries or any sort of shelter that gives out food. And when we're talking about food insecurity, this is kind of the definition of what that is and what that looks like. Food security is the ability to access a wide variety of nutritious and food and adequate amounts of that. And you don't need any sort of emergency food to rely on getting through the week. Food insecurity means that you have a reduced quality and variety of your diet, and there's also a reduced amount of food. And it also often means that the food that you have a lower nutritional quality. And then very low food security, as you can see, is the most severe form of food insecurity, and households must reduce food intake, or they often will skip meals because there's a lack of money or resources for food. And sometimes this is even relating to the access of food. So child food insecurity in Montana, it is all over the place. This map on the screen is from Map the Meal Gap, which is a map that Feeding America, which is the nonprofit national hunger fighting organization that we're a member of. They collect this data, and it's based on the percentage of what you would need, the number of meals that you would need to go from being food insecure to food secure. So that's mapping the meal gap. And as you can see, we have very insecure counties in Montana and then some that are doing all right. And the highest child food insecurity counties are listed there on the right-hand side of your screen. And those actually are similar for both child and adult. The food insecure counties pretty much are the same, regardless of if you're just looking at childhood numbers and or if you're just looking at adult numbers. But Sanders County, Lincoln County, Mineral County, Bighorn, so it's not just one area of the state, they're kind of spread around. And when we, here at the Montana Food Bank Network, we look at ways to not only solve hunger, and one of the bigger ways to go about doing that is also how to bridge some of that food security gap. We know that in Montana there are lots of reasons for food insecurity. It can be economic due to unemployment or low-paying jobs. It can be due to access to food, greater distances to get to a full service. And when I say full service, I mean a larger grocery store, not necessarily a town pump that's attached, you know, like a mini market that's attached to like a town pump or a gas station. So access is a big thing. Economics are a big thing. And then there's also just in Montana a lot of underutilization of public programs that are effective in helping fight hunger. SNAP, WIC, school meals, summer food, all of these are public nutrition programs that are available but often underutilized. Reasons for this vary. Sometimes it's participation is seen. There's a lot of social stigmas that surround being involved in these programs. Sometimes it's knowing about the program or regulations on how to get in the program. Sometimes program eligibility is a huge thing. Applying for these programs, there are barriers. And then oftentimes, too, in some of the smaller towns, just a lack of local programs or having access to an office that can help you. In Montana, those are some of the big things that we see is a lack of knowing how to apply or where to apply or having an office that can help you close by. For the purposes of this webinar, one of the programs that I really do want to focus on is SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It is the nation's largest and probably, I would say, best at what it does, anti-hunger program that's being facilitated. SNAP, some of you might still remember it. It used to be called food stamps. This is now the new and improved version of that program. There are approximately 1 in 4 Montanans that are likely to be eligible for SNAP that do not participate for a lot of the reasons that I just mentioned. There is a lot of folks aren't sure, you know, how much they'll get or if it will be enough, but the average benefit for a household, especially if there are children, is about $250 a month. It will range depending on the number of household members. You know, a family of 4 will get more than a family of 3 and so forth. However, the minimum benefit is $16 a month, and for folks that sometimes get that minimum level, they're like, well, I don't really know if it's worth it. We always tell folks, yes, it's totally worth whatever amount you're able to get because that money rolls over from month to month and doesn't expire. And even if you're getting a minimum amount that's $25 a month or $50 a month, that adds up and can be like receiving free bread and milk for a year. And when you're having kids in the household, that makes a huge difference, and every little bit can help. The yearly SNAP revenue is about $170 million, and it's estimated that for every $1 of SNAP benefits that's spent, that generates in the local economy $1.75. So there's a 75-cent gain on every dollar of SNAP benefits that's spent. And the money is used a lot, it's at local grocery stores in smaller towns. A lot of times that's family-owned businesses, supermarkets, and now many farmers markets across Montana are accepting EBT cards at their markets, so that's a great source to get fresh fruits and vegetables. And then, as you can see at the bottom, currently there's 120,000 Montanans that participate in SNAP. One of the big questions that I often get is about the eligibility around SNAP. There was some of you might have heard of a bill that was before the Montana House of Representatives a couple weeks ago talking about eligibility standards and resources. The great news was that bill was tabled, which is a good thing. So for now, most applicants, there is no longer a resource limit. You still have to meet these very stringent eligibility standards, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But the only folks that resource limits are applicable to are those who have been previously disqualified from SNAP. And then if anyone you know or someone is applying and they fit into that, they'll also have to meet a lower income level. But generally, to qualify for SNAP, you have to meet these two income guidelines. And the first, the gross monthly income limit, is just like what your checks come in after the taxes, like that's what you're looking at. And then your net monthly income is once you deduct any sort of utilities, rent, child care costs, if they're seniors, medical costs, all of those kinds of things, then that's your net monthly income. So as you can see, even for a household of one, it drops pretty significantly for those qualifying numbers. And this is just to give you a rough idea. These are all online, and the great place to go, calculating SNAP benefits is very tricky, and there is a great resource that's available online at the apply.mt.gov website. And as you can see right over at this homepage, this is actually the same screen you would go to if you or someone you knew or you were referring to someone to sign up to apply. You can actually apply here at this site as well. But there's a great little box too that if you're ever just curious or maybe helping someone out, this little box over here, am I eligible? It's a pre-screening tool. So folks will need some basic household information if they were going to look at that, your income, some resources that you might have, like if you had, they ask a lot of questions even if they're not always taking it into account, but I always tell folks to have kind of handy or an idea of how much money is coming in each month, what your expenses are, your utilities, if you're, sometimes if you have any child support payments, things of that nature. Having that information handy. This Am I Eligible tool is about 6 to 10 questions, so it takes, depending on what you have of information available or how much you have to hunt for, it takes maybe about 10 minutes to do, usually less. So that's a great resource to bear in mind. And then it'll tell you what if you're eligible and should go ahead and apply for SNAP. It also is in tandem, this application is in tandem with the TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, and then also I think it does Medicaid as well. So it will ask you some other questions, and then at the very end we'll let you know if and what programs you could be eligible for, and then you apply. And the application does it for all of those same programs as well, so you don't have to fill out multiple applications. Important messages that I like to share with folks who are potential SNAP recipients or potential SNAP applicants, rather, and that we also are just working to spread around because there are still a lot of myths and stigmas surrounding the SNAP program. But the one thing is that there are enough SNAP benefits for everyone who qualifies. One thing that I hear, especially if there tend to be seniors in the household or from seniors or older adults, is that and even families with kids, that you don't want to take benefits away from someone else who might need them more. And we always tell folks that you're not doing that. You pay into this program with your taxes, and so this program is here to help you out in any way that it can. You can also, some people are also afraid that if you apply for SNAP and are on SNAP, that you can no longer visit the food pantry or receive some commodities or participate in other food programs, and those are programs that also help them get by. Again, we're like, that's not true. You can be on SNAP and still go to the food pantry or participate in other food programs. And then this goes both ways. Some folks are like, well, I'm working, so I'm not eligible for SNAP. Also, again, not true. The same goes for the folks that say everyone on SNAP doesn't work. In fact, that there are more than 1 in 3 SNAP households in Montana that are employed. And the overall average for kind of nationally, 43% of all SNAP participants live in households with earnings, so that have at least one person who are employed. And then one of the other important messages we like to share too are that families that are enrolled in SNAP can automatically qualify for WIC and free school meals. One general rule of thumb, especially for the arenas that you're working in, is if you think that someone is eligible for free and reduced price meals and are helping them enroll in that, chances are they also qualify or should be enrolled, or at least look at enrolling in SNAP, because those are 2 programs that kind of go hand in hand and help make sure that kids are fed and healthy. And so speaking about free meals and how that kind of coordinates with SNAP and the benefits that SNAP can have for that, that feeds right on into our school section of it and the community eligibility provisions. So Allie, I will hand it over to you now, and you can share a little bit about that.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, I'm Allie with OPI School Nutrition Programs, and I'm going to be discussing and demonstrating how the connection between SNAP and school meals interrelates, and how schools are able to utilize that SNAP data as well as additional data sources to streamline meal eligibility. And one of the newer programs that we're really excited about, that we've been operating for about 3 years now in Montana, is the community eligibility provision. So what CEP is about is it allows eligible schools to provide free meals to all the enrolled students at that school. And we've had great success with it. 94% of our eligible sites in Montana actually participated this year, with 140 total school sites operating. So I think we've had great success. In Montana, 1 in 5 children are at risk for being food insecure, and CEP at the schools really simplifies that process for the children, to access those healthy school meals. Go ahead and, thank you. And who benefits from CEP? Everyone benefits from CEP. The students, number one, they definitely benefit by, not having to worry about any free or reduced stigma, or having to wait in line to pay, or it just really streamlines that process for the students, and ensuring that, that it's there for them, and so that they can be ready to learn. And the parents, they don't have to worry about the paperwork to complete a free and reduced application and worry about the funds. The schools benefit hugely. It reduces a ton of paperwork for them. They don't have to go through and approve all the free and reduced applications. They don't need to worry about collecting the money or meal charges, and it makes it a lot easier to implement additional alternative meal service styles like breakfast in the classroom. And so a little bit more about CEP and how schools actually can qualify for that. CEP is based upon the percentage of students that are directly certified. A school needs to have 40% or more of the enrolled students directly certified. And what direct certification is the process of determining eligibility without using a application from a household. Instead, they use documentation from the eligibility source directly, so from the state or local agency that is administering a program. And some of those sources, like SNAP, is actually definitely the largest eligibility source that we have in Montana, followed by some of the other ones are TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, FDPIR, Food Distribution Program on Indian Reservations, as well as Homeless, Migrant, Head Start, and Foster Care are all eligible sources. And how that calculation works is it just takes the number of identified students that are determined as directly certified from one of those eligible sources and divided by the number of students. And it can be determined different ways. It can be by an individual school, a group of participating schools, so they can kind of mix them up, or it can be the entire district, so 3 schools within the district, and the same calculation can be determined that way as the whole population of the students. The eligibility itself is determined as of April 1st data, so on April 1st of every school year we will take a snapshot of the data, and that's what we use for the following school year. And CEP reimbursement, so we take the direct certification percentage, and it's multiplied by a 1.6 multiplication factor, and that determines the reimbursement rate. So it's the percent of total meals served, it equals your free reimbursement rate. The remaining percentage difference is the schools will get reimbursed at the federal paid reimbursement rate. And the CEP rates are locked in for a 4-year period of 4 school years, and they're protected from decreases. So that's good that it's locked in, and schools don't have to worry about them going up or down. But it can go up if the direct certification percentages increase. You're able to adopt a higher percentage with that. So they do have the opportunity to go up. So just a fun fact, Montana schools operating CEP saw about a 20% increase in the school breakfast program participation. And so just to throw out an example of how that calculation for CEP works, say if you had 112 students at a school directly certified and 198 of them enrolled, that would equal 56.57% of the students directly certified. When you multiply that by 1.6, you get 90.5%, so that would equal their reimbursement rate. So they would get 90.5% of the meals reimbursed at the federal free rate, and the difference of 9.5 being reimbursed at the federal paid rate. And then just so you know, once schools hit a certain percentage, that percentage is 62.5, before applying the multiplication factor of 1.6, they'll receive 100% of the meals at the federal rate. And we do have schools in Montana that are receiving 100% federal free reimbursement for CEP. And how we accomplish this in Montana, I attribute much of it to our direct certification application system. And what that does is it automates the process through the system, directly certifying eligible students. So schools are able to log into our system and get the data for the students that are eligible and track it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but those percentages are determined on April 1st. So April 1st is coming up, and if you are a school, do you know your school's current direct certification percentage? Many reports in the system will display that information. So if you're not aware of what it is, I would suggest logging in and just being aware, because there are some actions that you can take to be proactive to try and maximize those percentages. So how can schools maximize them? AIM is the data in Montana that captures, it's basically Montana's student information system. So we utilize the AIM system for all the student information. We pull it into DCA. So we rely pretty heavily on AIM to make sure that all the student data is kept up to date. And then in DCA, it takes the students and it matches them up to eligibility sources. There is a view in the DCA system that you can select to review those potential matches. Since the system already matches the ones that are confident matches and relays them on a report, there's a smaller percentage of probabilistic matches that you can review to determine if they are indeed one and the same person. So it's easier for someone at the school level to be able to determine that with the information that they know about the students and the households. Another action item that schools can do to help ensure that their percentages are maximized and students are receiving the benefits is to manually directly certify students when appropriate. So the eligibility sources, again, being SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, homeless, migrant, Head Start, and foster care. But the documentation just has to be confirmed through the appropriate source of having one of those eligibility sources. The SNAP letters don't count as direct certification. And that's just per the federal regulation. And what you can do also is extend eligibility for SNAP, TANF, and FDPIR households. Because if any of those children or any students are living with anyone that are receiving SNAP, TANF, or FDPIR benefits, then the eligibility should be extended to the remaining students within that household. So within the system, you can actually go in and manually directly certify them and mark them as extended eligible based upon one of those and ensure that they're receiving that benefit as well as counting them with your counts.
Great. Before we get into this section, I just wanted to take a pause to see if there have been any questions that have popped up in like the chat box. We'll open the phone lines at the end or here in a little bit, but I just wanted to see if there was anything. Ali just gave you a bunch of really great information. So if there was any questions pertaining to direct certification or CEP that anyone had wanted clarified, you can go ahead and type those in the chat box, and then if either Amy or Ali, if you want to just read those out. I'll give everyone a couple of seconds if they have a question to type it on in, just relating to that, and then I'll move on in. No questions so far? Okay, well, I will go on with this little slide, and then Amy or Ali, feel free to interrupt if you have something pop up, and then we'll open the phone lines for general questions in just a couple of minutes.
Elizabeth, there is one question.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Can Head Start qualify families as directly certified in Montana?
They can directly certify using that data. They just need to have the confirm it from the eligibility source. I'm not aware of a lot of schools using Head Start, but I am seeing more and more Head Start programs affiliated with the schools, so there's potential that we'll start to see more and more of that.
Great. Amy, have you had any other questions pop up?
That's the only one.
Okay, well then I will go ahead and move on, and just so folks know, we are going to have space for questions here at the end. So if you have one, hold on to it, or type it on out, and we'll address it in just a minute. So what are some things that you can do at the school levels and in the communities? I know that all of us wear many hats and already have full plates. So there are some, what I hope are easy steps for you, especially on the SNAP side of things. Outreach to families is our biggest one. That's something that I'm just one of the lone people in my department that's doing SNAP. So if at all applicable, or if you're interested, have SNAP, WIC, and TANF and other resources available at your school for families to take information about other programs that could help them, as well as your school with any direct certification requirements. These are great programs that are, like I mentioned earlier, underutilized and can be fairly easy to apply for. So let us know or reach out to your local Office of Public Assistance. They also have many of the resources and brochures available and are usually happy to give them out. If interested, offer SNAP application assistance at your school. One of the parts of my job is I conduct a training, training folks in how to help SNAP participants or eligible participants fill out the online application and paper application. So if it's something that you think would be beneficial to have someone at your school know how to do, feel free to reach out to me and I can provide you guys with the training on how to offer SNAP application assistance to the public and the families of the school children. Or you can also refer people to the Montana Food Bank Network for help. I will also do that application assistance with clients directly over the phone. The hotline number, it's a 406 number, is listed right there. There also your local offices of public assistance will, folks can drop by, they can fill out an application, see if there are other programs they're interested in applying for, and if the program that they're applying for requires an interview, they can get that on the spot. Depending, again, where you are and where the Office of Public Assistance is, that's not always a great option. Sometimes it's not always a great fit. So just be aware of the ways in which families could be enrolled in these programs, SNAP, WIC, or TANF, particularly SNAP, as it's really applicable for helping with the free and reduced price lunches. And if there's any resources that you would like to offer or have available at your school that you don't already, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you in connection with those. And some action items, Allie touched on these in a little bit earlier, but Allie, I'll just let you run through any action items that you want to leave with folks that they can do at the school level.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that for direct certification and kind of wrap it all around with SNAP is the purpose of, us emphasizing the direct certification in CEP is it definitely can help a school qualify for CEP so that, if they have an opportunity to be eligible for CEP and offer free meals to all of the students and ensure that everyone is, well fed and taken care of that way, that they have the opportunity to do that. And this is, achievable by ensuring that those records are consistent and accurate, that they're getting the most out of the data that could be. So I would just like to emphasize that, make sure that the direct certification is performed frequently and that you're able to maximize those rates by checking the potential matches and ensuring that extended eligibility students are directly certified as well as that within the system. And then to also compare, your records between your school student information system to the direct certification system for consistencies and accuracy, and ensure that all those students are determined to receive the meal benefit that they're allowed to have. So.
Great. And at this time, if you have any other general questions or questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in the chat box. Or if Amy, if you want to unmute the lines, we can do it that way. And then just note that the contact information I provided are emails. So if you have any SNAP questions or are wondering about SNAP resources, there's my email address, and then if you have would like any information or have questions regarding CEP or direct certification, there's Allie's contact.
Everyone has been unmuted right now, so you can go ahead and ask any question.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay, I just started typing it, but I'll just ask it. So when you are talking about outreach, how do you get people to come to, say, get help with filling out a SNAP application? Because I've been trying to help at the local food bank to do that, and even those folks have been having a hard time with issues of stigma and whatnot. And I'm just wondering if you have any strategies for getting people to actually come and do it.
Not great strategies, but that's one of the things that we are working on. I think there is still a lot of, especially in smaller communities where everyone knows each other, that's still very hard to overcome some pride issues, and rightly so. So as far as actually getting people to come in and help or get help filling out an application if that's what you know that they need, I don't have any great suggestions other than, again, going with that. We try to debunk a lot of myths here and just always put the positive twist on SNAP, and that lots of people use it in, your community. I personally was a former SNAP recipient, so I'm always, trying to put people at ease. Like, I understand, that you're working or whatever circumstances, I'm not judging you. And sometimes, though, it is hard for folks to come in to do that face-to-face application assistance if they know the person who is helping them just for whatever reasons. And so sometimes that's when it's nice to have information about the hotline, because they can call my telephone and, they don't know me, they don't see me, and sometimes that step removed is easier for certain people. So, yeah, the only thing I would say as far as outreach is to just keep putting the positive messaging around SNAP, and hopefully that will help us break down some of those kind of mental blocks that people have about trying to apply, but it still is a hard thing to do regardless.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question, and that is the FDIRP the same as commodities?
It is the commodity program that is on the Indian reservations. If that's what you're referring to, then yes.
Yeah, so can SNAP recipients also be eligible for the FDIRP?
Not at the same time, they cannot. They, can be on one or the other, but not at the same time.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then that hotline number, there it is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good answer.
Can you come up to the Flathead and do a training?
Yes. No. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to travel around the state. That's actually part of my job. So the Flathead, is, compared to some of the places that I'll be traveling, is not far. So yes, I would love to kind of do trainings if you're interested. So feel free to email me, and we can start that conversation.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So if we wanted to see why people aren't eligible for both commodities and SNAP, who would we take that question to?
If they're not eligible?
Well, you said people are not, if they're on commodities, on the reservation, they're not all they can also get SNAP benefits. So I'm wondering, I'd like to have a deeper understanding, so who do I take that question to?
It's a USDA rule that they can be on one or the other. They just aren't supposed to be on both of them at the same time, since the intent of the programs are similar. So the funding for a household basically is not meant to be double dipped into the household to have the food support program going into a household twice.
Right. I guess go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and just an added clarification, and this is where it gets complicated with the lingo. There is FDPIR, which is just for Indian Reservation commodities, but then there's also general commodities, which also operate at certain food pantries, which could also be on Indian reservations, but are not FDPIR. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and if you are at a general commodities, you can also still be on SNAP. So it really depends on what the commodities program at, say, the senior center or the food pantry, what commodities that is being facilitated by, if that makes any sense or just adds more confusion.
No, it makes sense, because the senior commodities program we do have at the food bank, and people are on both, but the SDIRP was, because we're working so much in SNAP with good local food, and so it really penalizes people that we work with in Browning, because commodities is not that kind of food for the most part.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
That's a good question, though. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it is. Any other questions? Amy, I'm going to hand the screen at least back over to you for now, because I know that you had something you were going to put up. But if anybody has any questions too, you can also feel free to ask them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Scott Brandt, and I've been working with over in Browning, as some of you know, with the food issues over there. And in the summertime, they have a summer feeding program, kids eat free with the mobile food units. And it seems to me that there's some kind of ways that the rules are set up so that parents, they can not eat food that the kids leave, or take it and eat it later. It's my understanding. And also, they have like a $4 charge for the meals for parents, which sometimes is a real disincentive for parents eating with kids. And particularly on the reservation, the family likes to eat together. And so, do you know of any kind of programs or approaches to addressing this particular aspect of that program to make it easier for parents to eat with the kids?
That's a great question you have. This is Allie at School Nutrition. That's something that we have discussed here at the state agency. We do have to follow the USDA regulations. I understand exactly what you're saying and your concerns, and I would encourage any feedback from the field or any possible solutions to try and overcome that barrier, ways that maybe additional funding could come into play to, encourage a discounted meal or, just throwing out ideas. I'm not sure what the right solution could be, but I do think that there's a need to see what could be done.
Right. Okay, anything I think we've talked about subsidizing, having, subsidized funding for parents to eat with the kids, and we haven't gone very far with that, but it is an idea that's been thrown out. But I also think well, there's, this is more of, I think, a local issue, but sometimes the kids get more food than they can really eat in a meal, and so either having smaller portions or being able to save that food for later, that seems to be also a kind of a sticking point of not only with food waste, but just being able to share it in the family.
Mm-hmm. You had a great question, and just one other point is a lot of the summer food sites, if they are receiving those restricted USDA or government funds, some way to help circumnavigate that is at the local level, if there is any additional private funding. Some sites have had good luck working with churches or other nonprofits and being able to supplement so that they can offer lunches and so forth to the parents as well that are coming to drop off the kids so everyone can eat together. So a lot of times I would say maybe check with, if you know who's running your summer food, is check with them to see, how they're getting their funding, and if there's a way you can help them find additional resources that would allow them to offer it to the family.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add your comment with being able to save a part of the meal for later. With the summer feeding rules, they are allowed to take a fresh fruit or vegetable off-site.
Right. Yeah, I was, that part I do understand, but for the actual meal, if there's, kids are kids, and sometimes they're, especially at these summer feeding programs, they're set up at kind of sports sites and places where kids are playing and everything, and they just might not eat all the food, and but they can't really take half the meal home with them. The fresh fruit and such, I know they can, but the actual meal, they can't.
Right. And those are comments that I can definitely, take into consideration to relay to the USDA as well.
All right.
Any other questions? If not, I think that Amy, well, as you can see on her screen, but I think she might have some final instructions/requests. So Amy, I'll turn it over to you.
Just thank you everyone for being here today, and the webinar can be found at the link that's on your screen. I should have it edited and put there by, I'm going to say tomorrow, hopefully. And so just feel free to reach out with any one of us with questions. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.